Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
The deep calls to me, but I can no longer answer. By Zithero. My name is Ashera Sepulveda. I've lived on the mainland of Chile my whole life. At one time, all I dreamt of was protecting the past to preserve it for the future. So, of course, I chose a profession that would allow me to do that. I was a park ranger. Perhaps I still am? I don't know what I am anymore. Sorry. Let me get used to using 5 fingers on each hand again. They just seem so superfluous now. Where was I? Oh, right. Let me start at the beginning. I'm a park ranger on Rapa Nui. That's Easter Island for most of you. I love the island. It's small, intimate, and the moai stand guard there. There are so many different types of moai. Some are fully formed stone bodies, and some only have their heads and crowns remaining. Silent sentinels who stand watch over the sea. For the ancients who built them, I'd never even thought of what they were protecting against. Maybe I should have. A few days ago, I didn't think much of it at the time. Folks would go to the beach at Ankina for photos. There's a hotel that's not far from the beach, Isola di Pasque. So folks like to make a day trip of it. They take photos of Ahu, now, and the ocean, the surrounding mountains. A big tourist hotspot, really. There's a pair of restaurants nearby. All in all, it's a nice little day trip. Most folks like to go on when they visit the island. I make sure folks don't let their kids go climbing on the Ahu Now statues, and that no damage is done to the other statues and monuments. It's funny, huh? How so many folks come to see the ancient statues, yet have no reverence for them. It was then that I saw her. She seemed out of place, to say the least. Most people who go to the beach have bikinis, swimsuits, sandals, and so on. She stood with her bare feet in the water, her pale skin covered mostly in longish clothes. On top of the long flowing clothes, she had some kind of tighter-fitting undershirt on. But this covered her up to her palms, allowing her thumb to stick out through the cuff of the sleeve. Long black hair blew in the wind like straw as her thin face stared out over the water. She wore no makeup, her thin lips turned up into a smile, which gave me an unsettling feeling. I felt it best to approach her. This strange woman was likely to startle someone. Perhaps she was just someone who was drunk or high, having wandered out from the hotel. She was far too pale to be a local, yet she was wearing clothing that was proper for the winter climate, albeit the climate that is still pretty much comfortable at around 20 degrees Celsius in the winter months, like it was now. She was chanting something. I could hear her voice rhythmically speaking as I approached. Out from the ruins once possessed, fallen city, living death, crawling chaos underground. You are summoned by my twisting sound. As she spoke the words, I felt a chill run down my spine. Some of the other tourists paid her no mind, chuckling and moving on with their photography and admiring the local sights. Some even took photos of the strange woman. I cleared my throat as I addressed her, trying to be polite while not startling her. Ma'am? I began. As I did, she paid me no mind. Her eyes focused on the water. It was here I noticed something strange. Not that a woman chanting about ruins and fallen cities wasn't strange in its own right. Mind you, No, what was strange were her eyes. Icy blue eyes. Sure, plenty of folks have blue eyes, though these eyes were more intense. Stranger still, they were not human eyes. The irises were pinched in at the center, the outsides of each making a smile-like shape. Were these some kind of new contacts? Even as I spoke, my eyes looking to hers, I could see her irises shift and flex. They did not dilate as much as they wiggled and wormed. Maybe you should see a doctor? I asked, noticing the eyes and her distant behavior. I can help you if you like. I was worried that whatever drug could make someone's irises do that would likely cause her to pass out on the beach. Not really something I wanted to have to deal with. She spoke, a soft, lilting voice carrying through the air like sea foam. There is no help you can offer me as you are. With this, her hand latched onto my wrist. I struggled for a moment, looking up to the tall, lanky woman, her eyes never leaving the distant horizon. But wait with me. Soon you'll be far more than you are now. Then you will be of great assistance. I composed myself. Her grip on my hand was sudden, but not powerful. I could tell that if I had to rely on my self-defense training, it would be pretty easy to pin her down and call in for the local police to take her in. Ma'am, I offered again, a bit more authority pushed into my voice. Come with me. We'll get you something at the hotel, okay? Maybe some lunch. I gave the thin woman a once-over. You look hungry. The woman's smile grew as a chill passed over us. Soon, kind female, you will help usher in a new epoch of shadow. I frowned, pretty certain this woman was totally and completely crazy. Ma'am, are you insane? Is what I wanted to say. I don't know how far along I got saying that sentence, because something from the ocean shore flew at me. It did not lunge at me directly, however, at least not at my body. Instead, I got the image of a shadow rushing into my own. As it did so, I heard whispers. Chills ran up my spine as the whispers grew more audible. At first, it was all gibberish, hisses and clicks I could not understand, but soon the words began to make sense in my mind. Krong Lui Lao Naf was a bit that was chanted that I could make out, as well as Ga Nagi Dagen. I heard the strange woman speak now, outside my mind, as my heart hammered in my chest. Embrace it, she shouted, her strange eyes locked on mine. Let your mind go, she encouraged me. In madness, you will dwell. I grabbed my ear, screaming. Oh, God, those voices! What are they saying? As if answering my question, I could hear the voices. They sang to me in beautiful tones. Chosen mortal, be pleased. Our priestess has found you as a suitable vessel for the powers of the deep, the gods of old. The voice's last phrase made my entire body shudder, as my mind felt like it was sinking. We serve the house of Rayleigh, and soon so shall you. For our dear Lord's dream will soon end. My vision blurred for a moment, and my skin crawled, shifting and changing. I felt my blood freeze and unfreeze. My skin felt so dry at first, but soon comforting moisture seeped from my pores, my skin growing cold. I felt it shift and change shape. My very skin would prickle and rise on command, the skin thickening and filling me as my human skin changed. Air stopped coming into my lungs. At this moment, I tried to cry out, but my throat was full of something. It had to come out. Falling forward onto my knees, the whispers continued. "Oh, beautiful hybrid child. Yes, you will be remade in the dreamer's image." I heaved outward as best as I could, with no air in my lungs, and to my surprise, I felt my gums and teeth fall from my mouth. Along with them now, a set of strange and prehensile tentacles dangled from my gaping maw. I flinched as the inner portion of my gums stung, and with my tongue I could feel a beak of sorts hidden beneath the tentacles on my face. I shivered in pleasure now, my mind reeling as the voices gave me praises. Embrace his glory. My arms snapped, or rather the bones did. The pointless and useless bones in my arms and shoulders, cracking and snapping away. My arms now grew longer, more agile as the powerful flesh of the old ones overtook my rigid form. Turning to my hands, I watched in rapture as they changed. My pinky and ring finger melted and lengthened into a powerful tendril, as did my pointer and middle finger. My thumb mirrored them as well, each growing larger, thicker and longer. I looked at my new hands, my tentacles curling around them as I experimented with controlling them. I could feel toothed suction cups along my palms and flex them as I continued to examine my eerie, beautiful appendages. While the bones in my arms were pointless, I felt my legs grow stronger to support the flesh above. I took a breath in through my beak as I rose up, feeling my clothing rip from my new and improved body. My mind was free, and as I looked around the world, I saw beautiful new shadows and creatures moving in the ocean. The sea was not calm, not at all. Dark shadows roiled off in the distance as I saw the white crests of waves being ridden by beautiful dark creatures like myself. I felt my heart surge as I moved to the water, wanting nothing more than to swim in the cold and dark depths beneath the surface. The heat of the sun, though mild, felt oppressive now, and I wanted to take the cold and dark deep into my new body. "You're perfect," the woman, no, the priestess, informed me. I turned to her, and the vision of her was beautiful. Dark shadows pulsed from her mind, and her beautiful blue eyes shimmered in the darkness like sapphires. The odd irises now seemed so commonplace as her thin face smiled at me. I felt a surge of joy, and I cried out to her, an inhuman sound emanating from my chest and through my beak. I wondered what I looked like, trying to speak in my old mortal tongue, but not having much luck. "One does not speak with mouths, but speaks with minds." One of the many whispers called to me from the darkness of the ocean. I began to walk towards the water, uncaring now about the surface that I would leave. But before I could, the voices were comforting me, telling me where to go and what to do. Suddenly fell back. Now a choir of singing voices came through my ears. I fell into the water, crying out in my new voice. The choir sounded so wrong. I knew the words. I knew they were mortal words of praise. They hurt my ears so much. My tendrils rushed to my head, which I realized now was bulbous and soft, except for a small bit of cartilage where my skull once was. My hair had long since fallen out. I crawled beneath the water's surface, and now the voices had all stopped. A calm came over me as nothing but the soft and muted sounds of the deep entered my ears. I opened my eyes, and before me was a rainbow of colors I could never begin to describe. Colors that have no description or even an understanding of humankind. A deep breath of water filled my lungs. Its coolness spread through me as I relaxed, breathing under the heavy and cool depths below. The depths called to me, their stillness, their cool, sweet colors beckoning me to come to them. But before I could act, I heard the voice of the priestess. "Aid me! The followers of the false god come to kill me!" I turned and pushed myself out of the ocean, my lungs forcing water from my beak, as I spotted a strange sight. A man wearing some kind of helmet stood before the priestess. He wore a trench coat and boots. I could only see him from behind, but he brandished a knife. With a swift motion, I grabbed him from behind, my agile arms wrapping around his stiff and rigid ones. "No harm shall come to her," I shouted, in my mind's mouth, knowing that was the proper way to speak. As the priestess spoke, in the wrong way, the mortal words came and went like they were being shouted from a passing car. "I bring forth the old gods." And then, "The old days will come again." And finally, "The night shall reap the souls of mankind." It all sounded lovely, what I could hear of it. Then there was shouting, and to my right something terrible came forth. A bright red light, shimmering over me, and I did my best to hold the man before the priestess. But I turned to face the light, and my eyes went wide. Before me, most would have seen the physical body of a small woman with tan skin and milky eyes. But she wasn't a woman, not a normal woman. Behind her, 3 sets of feathery wings in white, red, and black spread wide. But no, it was not just the physical form that concerned me. Standing behind the 6-winged angel was another creature. It was nothing but wings and a face with a blindfold. It floated behind her, and as it did so, it only grew in size. My neck had to crane upwards as more feathers pushed out of some sort of rip in the new darkness around us. A bright red light cast itself over everything. That's when I saw the robes fall and feet and arms step outward. Now, towering over the 6-winged angel was some kind of winged monstrosity. Curly brown hair on his head with a human face, glaring down at the priestess. As he spoke, his words thundered so loudly that my heart shuddered to them. Alongside his voice, the 6-winged angel's voice echoed in unison. "Your false god slinked into the shadows, defeated and vanquished when my father said, 'Let there be light.'" At that moment, the red light turned into a blinding white flash, centered around the smaller angel. My skin burned. I cried out and released the man in my tendrils, stepping away from the horrible bright light. "With me he destroys kingdoms. How hast thou hoped to stand against me?" The powerful angel's voice boomed, and with the woman's voice before him echoing in the wind, I heard the priestess forsake herself in the darkness. "Forgive me. I know the true God now." But the angel had no mercy to give, and their voices boomed through the air, blowing the shadows away. "Then know him, and know the true might of the sword of Samael." The brighter light still came forth from the small angel, and now looking high into the sky, over the burning beacon, was that 6-winged angel Above her, I saw thousands of eyes upon the monstrous angel. So large, he stretched up into the air, past the sky, and still those eyes stared at me. I cried out in pain as the light burned my soul, my mind, and lastly, my flesh. At first, everything was dark, and I couldn't breathe. Then something heavy slid out of my body, and air rushed into my lungs. I opened my eyes, the light stinging them. I looked around confused. I tried to move my tendrils, but my arms pulled free from their flesh. I glanced at my hands, seeing 5 fingers once again, and then touched my face, feeling no beak. My teeth had returned as well. I looked down to see my tentacles and beautiful yellow, blue, and green eyes I once had staring up at me. I screamed in horror as my true face now stared back at me from the sand, as if staring at the lie that is my human face. My hair has yet to grow back, and as I type this, I can see my pale and listless reflection looking back at me. I can run my hand over my skull, feeling dry, hard skin and the prickles of new hair. My tongue slides over rough little pebbles in my mouth, and even now as I type, my heart yearns to once again be dragged beneath the waves, where I can see those beautiful and unexplainable colors once more. But the voices, they never stop. I hear them, especially at night when I wade waist deep into the water, feeling the creatures of the sea caress my disgustingly warm flesh. They whisper to me, they will have wished the darkness came to claim them, for soon the fires will engulf them all. So quote this raven. My darlings, if you had not guessed yet, you will notice that this is within the universe of the City of Women. If you need to catch up, I will put the playlist in the description, and a link to Nordic Vampires continuation of the world that took place after City of Women. So, it does stand good as a standalone, but, there is so much more behind it. And thank you to Devlin for letting me read this. Thank you once again, my darlings, for coming to see me in my little chateau. I don't get out much these days, as many of us don't. But it does mean the world to me. Why else would I be reading these stories, if not for you? Special thanks to my membership and Patreon supporters, Creepy Clown Girl, Unicorn Smoke, Ermin Case, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, Mutant Artificial Intelligence, Tabby Cat, and of course, Charlotte Emerson and Cortez Williams. You guys are amazing. Have a lovely day, my darlings.